The farmer wiped sweat from his forehead after 14 hours under the burning sun, yet the architect beside him finished 2 hours of work and earned 10 times more money. That day, sitting under a quiet mango tree, the farmer asked a question millions of hardworking people silently carry inside their tired hearts every evening. If work is honest and effort is real, why does the world sometimes reward the person who works less but thinks more? The architect smiled gently, not with arrogance, but with the calm expression of someone who had spent years understanding how value moves through society. What followed between them was not an argument about fairness, but a conversation that quietly reveals one of the most misunderstood truths about money. Because in reality, money rarely follows effort alone. It follows value, impact, and the ability to solve problems for many people at once. And once you truly understand this difference, your entire relationship with work, income, and opportunity begins to change in powerful ways. The farmer leaned against the tree trunk and said something honest that many people rarely dare to say out loud in public. I wake before sunrise, work until the moon appears, and my hands carry the weight of every harvest, yet my income barely changes each year. He pointed toward the architect's clean notebook and laptop bag resting beside him quietly on the wooden bench. You worked 2 hours designing a building, and the company paid you more than I earn after months of planting and harvesting. The farmer was not jealous, only deeply curious about the invisible rules that decide who earns more and who continues struggling. The architect nodded slowly, because he had heard this question many times from people who believed hard work alone guarantees financial reward. But he also knew the uncomfortable truth that society rarely pays for effort itself. Society pays for the problems you solve. The architect picked up a small stone and placed it gently into the farmer's rough palm. Imagine you spend all day carrying stones from one side of the field to the other, sweating under the sun without stopping. You would certainly be exhausted, and nobody could accuse you of being lazy or avoiding hard work. But unless those stones become a road, a house foundation, or something that improves someone's life, the work itself creates almost no value. The farmer stared quietly at the stone as the idea slowly began forming inside his mind, like the first crack in a thick wall. The architect continued calmly, speaking like someone explaining the hidden mechanics behind something that looks simple from outside. Money does not measure how tired you are. Money measures how useful the result of your work becomes for other people. The farmer frowned slightly and asked another question that revealed a deeper confusion many people carry for decades. So you mean the problem is not working hard, but the kind of work someone chooses to focus on? The architect smiled again and nodded while drawing 2 simple circles in the dirt with a small wooden stick. In this circle, one farmer grows vegetables that feed 20 families in the village each season. In the other circle, one architect designs a building where 2,000 people will live, work, and earn money for many years. The farmer slowly understood the hidden comparison forming between the 2 circles, drawn quietly in the soil. The architect's work touches thousands of lives with one design, while the farmer's effort helps fewer people, even though the labor feels heavier. And because value spreads wider, the financial reward often spreads wider too. The farmer sighed because the idea felt both enlightening and slightly uncomfortable at the same time. For my entire life, people told me that if I simply worked harder than everyone else, success would eventually follow. The architect nodded again, acknowledging that this belief is deeply rooted in many cultures and families around the world. Hard work is still important, but hard work alone is like rowing a boat without choosing the direction of the river. You can move your arms endlessly, yet the destination might remain exactly the same year after year. The farmer laughed softly because the metaphor felt painfully accurate to his own experience. Sometimes people exhaust themselves climbing a ladder that is leaning against the wrong wall, and the tragedy is not the effort, but the years lost before realizing the ladder leads nowhere meaningful. The architect leaned back against the tree and looked toward the distant fields, stretching across the horizon quietly. The world has many people willing to sell hours of labor, but far fewer people willing to solve complicated problems. And the bigger the problem you solve, the more people your solution can help simultaneously. The farmer rubbed his calloused hands slowly, Thinking about every season, he had repeated the same cycle without questioning it deeply. So thinking carefully about what creates value might be more important than simply working longer hours every day. The architect nodded again, because this realization often becomes the turning point in someone's financial journey. Effort multiplies results, but direction decides whether those results grow or remain painfully small. The architect drew another diagram in the dirt, this time forming two long horizontal lines beside each other. Most people sell time, which means their income stops the moment they stop working. If they work 10 hours, they get paid for 10 hours. And tomorrow, the same cycle must begin again. But some people create something once that continues delivering value long after the work itself is finished. A building design, a book, software, a business system, or an idea that helps thousands of people repeatedly. The farmer's eyes widened slightly as he realized the profound difference between these two invisible economic models. One person trades hours for money, while the other creates value that multiplies without repeating the same effort endlessly. Silence settled between them for a moment, while the afternoon wind moved softly through the mango leaves overhead. The farmer finally spoke again, but this time his voice carried curiosity instead of quiet frustration. So the real question is not how hard I work tomorrow morning, but what kind of value my work actually creates. The architect smiled proudly, because the farmer had just arrived at the most important insight of the entire conversation. Exactly. Because when value increases, money naturally follows, like water flowing downhill toward the lowest point. Chasing money directly rarely works, but increasing value almost always attracts financial reward over time. The farmer looked toward his fields again, but now his eyes carried a different kind of awareness. The architect offered a few simple ideas before leaving, hoping the farmer would begin seeing his work through a new lens. First, always ask yourself what problem you are solving and how many people truly need that solution. Second, learn skills that multiply your impact, rather than simply increasing the hours you physically work. Third, observe where society already places value, because markets reveal what people truly need, not just what sounds noble. And finally, remember that thinking deeply for 1 hour can sometimes create more value than 10 hours of blind effort. The farmer listened carefully, because these ideas felt practical rather than abstract motivational advice. Before leaving, the architect picked up the same stone he had placed in the farmer's hand earlier that afternoon. This stone alone is worth almost nothing when lying quietly on the ground beside the road. But in the hands of an engineer, it becomes part of a bridge that allows thousands of people to cross a river safely. The stone did not change, but the value increased because the purpose became larger. The farmer smiled slowly, because he finally understood the deeper message hidden within such a simple example. Maybe my life doesn't need more hours of effort. Maybe it needs a better direction for that effort. The architect nodded once more before walking away along the dusty village path toward the horizon. Many people spend their lives believing exhaustion automatically guarantees success, yet the world quietly rewards value more than effort alone. Hard work will always matter, but the kind of problems you solve matters even more in today's interconnected economy. When your work begins helping more people, solving larger challenges, or creating solutions that scale beyond your personal time, income naturally expands. So tonight, instead of asking how many hours you must work tomorrow, ask a more powerful question. What kind of value can I create that truly improves someone else's life? Because the moment your focus shifts from selling effort to creating value, the entire game of money begins changing in your favor. And that simple shift might be the quiet turning point that transforms the rest of your financial story.